My name is the United States of America, and I'm an addict. My drug of choice has always been alcohol, but sometimes I dabble in cannabis, cocaine, meth, synthetics, and increasingly, prescription drugs. You could say I'm the world's largest consumer of drugs, and you'd be right. That my real addiction is to the double standards by which I treat various drugs. I suffer negative consequences in my life because of my addiction. I kill thousands drunk driving on the road every year, according to the CDC. According to the CDC, in 2010, I killed 38,000 people through overdose deaths. 16,000 of those were from prescription drugs. I have spent more than $1 trillion, according to the DPA, on the drug war. And I have created what Michelle Alexander calls the new Jim Crow. I arrest blacks at 3.73 times the rate of whites for marijuana possession, despite similar use rates among the races, according to a major study by the ACLU. I am the king of incarceration. I comprise 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's prison population, according to the ACLU. My addiction is horrible on my neighbors. Since 2007, I've killed more than 100,000 in Mexico in drug-related violence, according to independent researcher Molly Malloy. I want to stop. I need your help. Thank you for letting me share. Okay, my name is not the United States of America. My name is Nathan Jones. I am a proud American, and I am the Alfred C. Glasell III Postdoctoral Fellow in Drug Policy at Rice University's Baker Institute for Public Policy. I conducted an academic year of fieldwork in Mexico. I spent 6 months in DF, Mexico City, or 3 months in DF, Mexico City, and 6 months in Tijuana, building a case study of the resiliency of the Cartel Ariano Felix, better known as the Tijuana Cartel. When you walk around doing organized crime research in Mexico looking like this, you get accused of being an FBI or CIA agent a lot. One time I was doing a preliminary research visit down to Tijuana, and my landlord was fixing the lock on my door. And I'm petting his dog, and I'm on the ground like this, petting his dog, and all of a sudden he gets on the other side of the door shuts because you've got to shut it to fix the lock, and the dog flips out and bites me on the face. Fortunately, just a fear bite, doesn't draw blood, but he tells me later what he was thinking when he came back around the corner. He was like, oh no, my dog bit the FBI agent. People are always asking me, especially students, how do you do research on drug policy, on organized crime, drug trafficking in Mexico? And I always like to say, research just kind of comes to me. No, I'm just kidding. Students love that. But what you really find when you're doing research, when you're interviewing victims of extortion, businessmen in the area, victims of kidnapping, when you're interviewing people who live in the areas, U.S. and Mexican law enforcement, people who are directly affected by drug violence, what you find is what bothers them is not the trafficking of drugs. What bothers them is the violence associated with black markets. I've been asked to share with you a vision. And that vision is of marijuana legalization in the state of Texas. Texas is one of the largest and most populous states in the Union. It is known for good, fiscally conservative governance. It is an economic and energy powerhouse. As Texas goes, so the nation will go. And as the United States will go, so will world drug policy go. Nothing about this is new. The only thing that is new is the pace at which this issue is entering the mainstream. And the question is, will we be ready so that it will happen in a responsible way? According to Gallup, 58% of Americans are in favor of marijuana legalization. CNN's also got polls, 54%. A majority of Americans are now in favor of marijuana legalization. And right here in conservative Texas, I put conservative in quotation marks, according to public policy polling, a poll done showed that 58% of Texans are in favor of marijuana legalization. 20 states plus the District of Columbia have medical marijuana laws on the books, and more are following. 2 states, Colorado and Washington, have legalized fully recreational marijuana, and there are more that appear to be on the way. Former and sitting presidents of countries like Uruguay, Colombia, Guatemala, Brazil are all calling for fundamental changes in the way we look at drug policy, particularly as it regards to marijuana, but all drug policy. I am not saying marijuana is a good thing. I am not saying you should use it. I myself do not, and will discourage my child from using it. What I am saying is that we might want to rethink illicit markets. And that if we come up with carefully, thoughtfully regulated markets, we might address some of the harms associated with prohibition. The harms like organized crime, etc. Marijuana legalization might actually make us safer. Here's how. Researchers are now poring over data from Colorado and Washington, trying to figure out something. Is marijuana a substitute, what economists call a substitute, for alcohol? I.e., will some people forego the use of alcohol and use marijuana instead? This could have far-reaching implications. For example, a recent New York Times article citing academic literature showed that experts generally agree that with marijuana in your system, you are twice as likely to get into an accident as you are when you are sober. But depending on your age, another recent study showed when you're drunk on alcohol, depending on age, you can be 9 to 20 times more likely to get into an accident over sobriety. Obviously, sobriety is best. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but if some percentage of the population substitutes one for the other, we might see a reduction in traffic fatality. People are fond of saying, nobody ever smoked a bowl and went home and beat their spouse. If people substitute marijuana for alcohol, we might see a potential reduction in domestic violence cases, given the differences between the drugs. We have a prescription drug abuse problem in this country. If people are given an option to use medical marijuana in lieu of, say, prescription opiates, and some percentage chooses that, we may see a reduction in those overdose deaths that I was mentioning. 2010, there were 16,000. Overdoses from cannabis, marijuana, in all of human history are exactly 0. Researchers have figured out that you would have to smoke thousands of joints in a 10-minute period to overdose. Thus far, no one has ever pulled it off. Our attempts to crack down on prescription drug abuse, to eliminate doctor shopping, to eliminate pill mills, may be creating heroin addicts. People may be in the situation where when they are cut off from their supply, they are going to illegal heroin. In the black market of illegal heroin, no one is checking if you are doctor shopping. Again, going back to the earlier point, if some percentage of the population is given a choice or has the option to choose between prescription opiates and medical marijuana, we might see a reduction in the number of people who end up here. This is a picture I took in my latter days of research, fieldwork in Tijuana. And this was a very, very common sight. You would see military patrols on the streets. It was just a common sight. Drug war proponents are fond of saying that if we legalize marijuana, we will not destroy the cartels, better referred to as drug networks or organized crime. We will not wipe them out. What Mexico's problem is it has weak state institutions, and that's why there are high levels of violence in Mexico. Well, on the point of not wiping out the cartels, I concede the point. You will not wipe out organized crime in Mexico simply by legalizing marijuana. But a recent study called Si los vecinos legalizan, if the neighbors legalize, about Washington, Oregon, and Colorado, states that had 2012 ballot initiatives for marijuana legalization, written by Alejandro Hope and Eduardo Clark, found that in each state that legalized, 22 to 30% of revenues from those states would be denied to cartels. So by legalizing, we can deny significant profits to organized crime. How is it fair that we ask a nation to strengthen its institutions while we provide so much bribery and corruption money in the system? Drug war proponents like to go even further. And they say, if you eliminate this source of profit, they will diversify into other activities. Now, they've diversified, obviously, into other drugs, but they can diversify into extortion and kidnapping. These are very violent activities that victimize the population. Well, my research in Tijuana found that when the Cartel Ariano Felix split into two in 2008, they split along their functional lines of specialization. One focused on drug trafficking, money laundering, and maintaining a low profile, while the other went into kidnapping and extortion. And my research found that the state and civil society, doctors' associations, etc., all galvanized in their reaction to the group that engaged in extortion and kidnapping. So over the long haul, we can expect that those groups that move into those areas of extortion and kidnapping, those highly violent activities and business models, will be wiped out over the long haul. So what are we doing about this here in Texas to make sure that marijuana legalization, if it is indeed coming, comes in a responsible fashion? It is carefully thought out. We pose a simple question at the Baker Institute through a series called Baker Institute Viewpoints. Should marijuana be legalized? And we got 7 responses from experts from across the country that ran the political gamut. One of them I thought was particularly interesting. It was from our very own non-resident drug policy fellow, Gary Hale, a former DEA Houston Intel chief. And the title of his was Marijuana Legalization When, Not If. He wasn't saying it was a good thing. What he was saying was, if there's a general societal movement toward this, we need to think about what the implications of that are. The series caught the attention of a South Texas College of Law student named Raymond Balacia. Ray got in touch with us, and at first I thought, okay, one law student is getting in touch with us. But by the end of the day, we had emails from the dean, and we were in contact with Professor Drew Stevenson, who was helping us to establish a collaboration agreement between the Baker Institute Drug Policy Program and the South Texas College of Law. And over a series of meetings, what we came up with was the students at the South Texas College of Law would write in their public law courses model legislation carefully thought out legislation on what marijuana legalization would look like right here in the state of Texas. So for their assignment, they would write model legislation for the state of Texas. The students wrote 19 statutes, and they're available on our Baker Institute website. And they wrote about things that you might not expect at first glance. This is a label. It goes on your food, right? We just take it for granted. It's always there. Some of us look at it, some of us don't. But it tells us what's in it so that we can make informed decisions. What should be on a cannabis label so that you can make informed decisions about what to put in your body? What kind of regulations should be there? I want to read to you very briefly an example of what one of the students wrote so that you can get a sense of how carefully they thought this through. I'm going to go through it really, really fast. It shall be unlawful for any person to manufacture, package, sell, offer to sell, or distribute within an acting state any cannabis, the package of which fails to bear, in accordance with the requirements of this section, a label depicting the following information. A. Minimum percentage is required by law of THC and CBD in each package of cannabis sold to the public. B. Percentage of THC contained in the package of cannabis. C. Percentage of CBD contained in the package of cannabis. D. Strain or type of cannabis listed by scientific names, if available, and generic or slang names. E. Warnings of any side effects, whether physical, mental, or otherwise associated with a particular strain of cannabis. I'm going to skip down. My personal favorite. J. Suggested or advised ingestion amount based on percentage of THC and CBD contained in the cannabis and consumer weight. This is an example of how carefully the students thought these things through. Now, the Baker Institute and the South Texas College of Law, we do not necessarily endorse any of the statutes. Some of the statutes actually contradict each other. Students wrote 19 separate statutes, but they were very carefully laid out. And what we wanted to produce was a menu, an array of options that leaders, policymakers, civil society leaders could look at when they're carefully thinking through what marijuana legalization should look like in the state of Texas. In the next session of the course, which is already meeting, we produced so much in terms of 19 statutes, more than 400 pages of statutes and commentary. We decided we wanted to put them into groups and create uniform codes along the different various models of legalization. And there are 4 models that the students are looking at. Full private sector-led legalization, a state monopoly model where the state maintains a monopoly on cultivation, distribution, sale, etc., a medical marijuana legalization statute, and a decriminalization statute. If marijuana legalization is coming to the state of Texas, and we want to make sure that it comes in a responsible and mature fashion, well thought out, if it comes and we don't like how it turns out, we will have no one to blame but ourselves. So we at the Baker Institute and the South Texas College of Law call upon you to actively engage in this debate as it arises, to carefully think through what a marijuana legalization regime should entail and what should be considered. I want to thank you for your time and thank you for letting me share.